Yeah, so there's just something I've been mulling over for the past week. I was listening to other podcasts and I came across Brilliant Idiots, and they had an interesting conversation where Charlemagne claimed, well, Charlemagne, stayed the mainstream where he stated that, like, most people believe that currently the country as it is systemically racist. And Schultz, his rebuttal was that he thinks it's just racist people, but not really systemically racist. And that got me thinking, and that's kind of been running around my noodles in like the past week, where I was just like, we really can't point to a law, at least to my knowledge, that says X people can't do this thing or are only allowed here, or this benefits them, or X people are regulated to this thing. But we're still claiming systemic racism. Whereas I kind of came to a conclusion that it's more inherent racism. Like, there are people that are racist within the country. And it led me to this like really hard decision that I think the US is inherently just a racist country, like all citizens within it. And before I go on with that, let me kind of explain that, where it's just like race and multiracial, communities are the greatest strength, and also we're seeing now the greatest weakness of this country. Where it's like, when it's working, we're calling it diversity, but when it's not working, we're calling it racism. And so I think that's why people are
That's an
freaking
interesting
out,
point.
because it's essentially like the core of the country's in conflict. And the stress test that was the pandemic is showing that they were like, we're attacking each other over, racism and stuff like that. And we're attacking the system itself because of it, because we're freaking out. We're on the verge of delivering leadership of the country to a party that says they will regulate and correct the core of multiracial issues without presenting any other information really for other things that they could probably correct. And we're just like, no, this is
What do
like the
you
most
wait, hold on,
important thing
what
for
do you
the
mean
country.
correct?
So, like, I mean, there's not really clear policies for like the economy and stuff like that outside things that are happening that the right is able to propose things for. But the left is clearly stating we are going to directly interfere or address, I think that's the best word, address, racism and multicultural issues. And we're really, like, as a country, able to go like, okay, yeah, cool, because that is like the core issue. And I think that's kind of where we're in a weird juggle where we're like, do you want the economy, or do you want the racial issues to be handled? And we're kind of on that fence, and everyone's kind of throwing things back and forth as to why, like, either side is wrong or right. But ultimately,
So let me ask
like,
some questions and bounce
the
some ideas off you that I have about this.
What's his question?
No, I said I have some questions.
What is Doc's question?
Okay, Doc.
So that's what I kind of wanted to get to, where it's just like, I'm kind of in a firm belief now that the country as a whole operates on racism, not necessarily like completely negative, but race is very apparent to everybody. The fact that we're able to be like, hey, what food are you eating tonight? And you go like, oh, Asian food, oh, Mexican food. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we just live in a multiracial country. And so I think race is at the forefront of what we do in everything. And especially talking to people from like international areas where they talk to me about racism, and I was like, oh, I didn't know your country was only 90% of one person. So you don't like type of people. So you don't really see others and stuff like that. And so you look at us, especially within our news and in our mainstreams, and you clearly see like a huge
A
amount of
diverse,
issues
yeah,
with just multiracial
yeah.
people. So that's why I was thinking, I was like, man, I think honestly, the country as a whole has racist issues. And we kind of have to like look at that when we traverse ourselves within our own country now. Because I think that it is our greatest strength and our greatest weakness. And I kind of want to know from you guys if you all agree, or if you disagree, or if you think all of it is just complete shit of what I just said.
Well, I don't think America is inherently racist, but I don't disagree that there are racists in America.
I think America is inherently racist.
So let me get to my point, and then I guess you can get to yours.
I was
So
saying my opinion.
yeah, I got you. I think America is inherently, and let me explain this, elitist. And that's why I think Doc made an interesting point in his explanation, was that when it's working, it's diversity. When it's not working, it's racism. So right now, the biggest, I think, core issue right now is people feel like there's an elite in this society that have been taking advantage of the minority. And to some, the elite are, I would say, white people. These white people, and they've been saying racism. But then the counter argument is, but some of these elites that you assume are white with racist are actually black, Indian, Asian. Like, it's not just a monopoly now with elitists being solely white. So the typical go-to when the minority was upset with the elites were white people. Because, let's be honest, racism did exist. Like, we only got rid of segregation, like 60 years ago? And that goes to John's point earlier, and I don't know if you would, if this is right, me use your point in my argument or opinion, but like...
Integration?
No. Damn, you just fucked me up. No, not integration. Well, either way, I just think it's not a racist thing, because at the end of the day, it's elitist. And when you feel like someone's higher than you want to blame somebody for being higher than you. And
okay, I can go.
Yeah, go
I'm
for
about
it.
to comment on what you said.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so I feel like elitism is a way to say it, but I feel like it's a technical term. Like, if we were speaking in as far as like law, it'd be a way of guising racism. So I say that to say it is elitism, and I agree, but it's elitism now that comes from a racist system. So obviously there are things like redlining and like things that are taking place, whereas like it's harder for black people to get loans. It was harder for black people to get loans. It was harder for
I
black
guess that's
people
my
to
problem.
move into areas.
But now you can't really say that. I
but
get
no,
then,
you can now, because people have been sued and law. Trump has been sued for it. Wells Fargo has been sued for it, and they found enough evidence to where these people would actually have to pay. So that's what we have to remember. They found enough evidence to where the law decided you actually have to pay because of this. So it is elitism now. But if you're doing like, okay, let's say you're doing elitism is let's say all white people are 3 feet tall, okay? And black people are, just for measurement's sake, 4 feet tall, just to be dumb. Okay, or 5 feet and 6 feet, whatever it is. We're 1 foot taller than you guys, okay? Or shorter, whichever one you know. It has to be taller. Okay, so you structure your buildings and everything for people who are 5 feet tall, okay? And then you're like, oh, wait, there are people that are 6 feet tall. You can come in, but they have to duck their head. They have to do something a little bit extra to get in there. It's not that the people or whatever they're doing to allow people in the building is systematically racist, but it was not structured for the other people.
See, I disagree. I don't think necessarily it's the structure. I think it's the implementation of it.
If you're the one building it, you're going to build it for yourself. And if you're building the country for hundreds and hundreds of years, and we can say racism just stopped 60 years ago, there's no way.
I'm not saying it stopped 6 years ago, but I'm
but
saying,
you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like laws and stuff like that. Racist laws stopped 60 years ago. There's no way a logical thinking person would say that the country isn't set up to benefit a certain group versus a certain other group. And now, if we're just saying it's elitism versus or like regular class or middle class, if there has been one class, even though all of that class isn't rich or seen as predominantly wealthy, but if that one class has benefited or has gotten less of a hard time than the other classes to get to a certain point, then all of a sudden you want to look at wealth. So, for example, if you're giving, just to make it a lazy example, if you're giving all white people $100, right? And then after that, you say, hey, anybody with less than $100 can't come over here. But it's not because you're black. It's because you don't have $100. That's what elitism now is to me now. And your point of it's not just white people that are seen as elites. Sure, you can say that. But that's also a ploy used to, for example, Obama was president. y'all got a black president, or why can't you be like Jay-Z? Like, you can't use one-offs, not even one-offs. You just can't.
What do you mean one-offs?
I don't want to call them one-offs, but you can't justify, like, percentage-wise the success rate or the financial success rate comparative to another demographic.
The only reason why I bring it up is because my thing is I don't necessarily disagree at all with that. There's an issue. Like, for example, like, yeah, racism exists. I don't disagree with that. Do we have a problem with racism? For sure. Or look at our history. And like I just stated earlier, that we just made progress that only came about 60 odd years ago.
What I'm saying is a person could not be racist, but when they look at an application and they see Jaliquia, can say, I might not want to hire that person. Now, that person isn't racist. Like, they don't go and do racist things throughout their day. But because of how we've been set up for hundreds of years, we can't, like, it's just inherent. Even black people are racist towards black people. Like, I guess we view moving out away from each other as success. We view moving to where white people are as success.
So like two different things.
No, we're not. We're saying, is the country inherently racist? I'm not saying which way it's racist or who's the racist people.
Okay.
That's what you're stuck on. I'm not saying, it's just white people are racist. His point was the interactions we all have. We're saying, we're eating Mexican, we're eating Asian. Like, we use racial undertones in everything we do. But if we acknowledge that, we have to acknowledge
there are going to be some
exactly.
I get it.
Exactly. So
I don't disagree with that.
And so it's the racial thing has been more pro-white for a longer time. And so now we're trying to find a balance, and everybody's trying to find a balance or whatever. That pro-white sentiment has allowed for, I don't want to say opportunities, but it's allowed for less bite back on certain things in certain people's lives. And that's what is inherent in the country. So we're working towards that. Now, Jaliqua, if she has a master's degree, I might not care based on her name. I might think, it's cool. Oh, yeah. Or, yeah, I want a black girl in the building. You get what I'm saying? But we have to acknowledge that that's new, and that overlooking that application is more normal. And that is what we're talking about.
I guess I agree with everything you said. I guess my fear I'm struggling with is I just feel like we're not properly addressing the racism issue.
I agree with you.
Because that's my only big gripe, is I feel like when people talk about racism, my thing is that I'm not trying to, when I argue against it, it's not that I'm arguing that it doesn't exist or it's not prevalent. It's just that if we're going to talk about it, let's talk about how we can actually effectively deal with it. Because racism is not an issue within a particular ethnic group.
Okay, but you have to. So I agree with you, and you know we have these discussions, but I'm getting, I don't want to say I'm getting older now, and that's why, but I'm understanding now that, there are nuances to certain things, but we have to accept certain things as well, regardless of the nuances, so we can talk about it, so we can be receptive to talk about it. So, for example, when somebody says, America isn't racist, but there's racist people in it, it's like, the country's made up of the people, though. So, like, we're arguing that, the country itself isn't racist. And we say that, so now we want to talk about, individuals. And we won't talk about groups. So we're going to talk about, there are racist cops, or there are racist this and there are racist that. But, what can you technically do about individuals and how they grow up? Not much. You know what I'm saying? You can't be in everybody's house telling them not to be racist. But then we can all agree that as organizations, maybe police treat black people a little bit different. You get what I'm saying? But we want to talk about, it's not all the cops, it's da-da-da. So you allow that same trapdoor we were talking about for Bill Burr or Channel. It's like an exeter. All cops aren't bad, so I still need to show support to cops or whatever. The sentiment isn't just that all cops are bad. And then when you have the, I need to show support for the cops, then you have the anti of that, which is, man, fuck all of the cops. It's just we create these sentiments by not agreeing on the simple truth and wanting to argue the nuances of that. And
So, like sometimes you have to though.
you
Devil's in the
have to,
details.
but okay, for example, the nuances of a George Floyd case. And this is, I'm not trying to just pull something easy that you can't defeat, you know what I'm saying? But just something simple as in talking about his history or talking about all these other things that don't matter when the actual, and I'm not saying either which side is doing it, but when the actual topic is how black people are policed. So now we're talking about, just arresting form, or we're talking about Black Lives Matter, or we're talking about just all these other things when it simply started like we seen somebody that was being policed incorrectly, and we still haven't spoke on it. So when you get on the nuances, you distract from the main point because.
And I share the same sentiment with this and the police argument. Like I can completely agree with the whole police thing. I just feel like when we talk about it, we're not talking about how to effectively deal with it. And I don't want to get into nuances that dive in that argument, but it's like defund or abolish. It's like that's not the answer. Like we have a problem, and that's not the answer.
I kind of see it in the same light as Gene. At least for a while, I really did. Like to me, when I first saw all the stuff going on, I was like, "Oh, this is just a class issue. This isn't really a racial issue." And I kind of went through it, and I started to look at it, and I was just like, "Okay, so this is obviously like." The fear of elitism, to me now, the way I see the country is like juggled between racial issues and economy. And the fear of elitism is somebody that hyper drives the economy. And then that usually in history turns into utilitarianism, which then turns into fascism. And so I can understand why the left is freaking out because they're scared of the onset of fascism. But then you have somebody like on the left who hyperdrives mass cultural change immediately, too fast. And that's scaring the far right, or not even the far right, but just the right, because that turns into cultural revolutionary. And we're kind of seeing a little bit of both. So the country's in like a weird turmoil where we're trying to rebalance it. And I think that like, to me, for a long time, I was like, dude, the economy, like, if the economy falls, we are so many different races and religions, we will revert to tribalism. And if we do that, then it's just that's when bands of people start running around the streets and they're like hunting each other down because they're in survival states. So I don't want the economy to fall. The other way is if we hyperdrive the economy, then we start utilizing people and we start pushing them into environments that are unsafe and stuff like that. And then we start kind of like we exploit them. And that's the hard part. And a lot of the times, like the racial exploitation happens towards minorities because we're the minorities. And so we're on the come up and it's just easier to catch us off of guard with the rules that are already set. The only thing is that like the argument now that I'm kind of going against with the systemic racism is there's nothing clear as day that says like,
that's what I don't want to call it racism.
There's no workflow.
Prejudice.
Like there's no policy that says like if this color or this person's heritage, then yes or no go to this action. You know what I mean? Like there's no flow charts that when they're teaching you how to police that says that.
This is my point to that. I don't think anybody dumb made America. I don't think anybody dumb made racist policies either. So why would you just have it on paper? Like these things exist because they existed. So now
but they used to be on paper.
They used to be on paper. So because they're not on paper anymore, that's literally the whole argument. It's not on paper anymore.
Because like I would argue that I think it was Lyndon B. Johnson's Great Society.
I fucking hate that guy. When signing the shit, he said this will do to the black community.
Destroyed the community.
Like
there
so
are ripple effects of something like
exactly. So it's just like, okay, we took the rule off. For example, Jim Crow laws and all these other things. Okay, you guys can go vote. You guys can do this.
That's why I don't disagree that racist was here and we had like some racist things going on. It's just if we want to solve it now, that's I guess my only.
It's just wild that I agree with Doc. It's just wild that they're hyper driving it now.
Yeah.
When literally the Democrats have had the black vote this whole time. and they could have did it in increments for years. But now they feel like they're going to lose our vote.
And I feel like they're not even still trying.
Oh, man.
Not only that, I think they're blinded by their rage with Trump
Dog.
and that whole divide. And that's actually a good observation, man. I never pointed that out, but yeah.
No, black people, man, I'll tell you what, people will be surprised this year when they count them votes. If they check them boxes, everybody know what color you are if you did your census. All right, you're going to be surprised how this vote come out, man. You're going to be surprised. I'll tell you this, Biden did do pretty well after the debate, but he just didn't say shit. So, like, man, all right, we'll see.
He just did he did a really good job, like we discussed, playing the character.
And you know what's
he's
funny?
got the character down. He's
I heard on a podcast
studied
my
it.
actual
He's
premise.
practiced it. He's experienced it.
Oh, for sure.
He can portray that character.
I heard on a podcast.
But that's the
my
crazy thing, right?
Go for
Like,
it.
he isn't proposing anything new. He's doing the cookie cutter stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And the country's buying it because it's like it's what they want at this point. Because it's just like they're tired to an extent of the antics and stuff like that. It's just it's kind of baffling, but to me it's showing me how important the issue of racial dynamics is that people are willing to get the cookie cutter stuff to be like, no, this is what we need to address. And I'm not saying like against it, I'm just saying, I'm just like, holy crap, like that, like it's truly, literally to me, now America is racial dynamics and economy. As long as they're in cohesion and in perfect harmony.
But those things have always
America's
been
full
the
blast.
same. And that's what, at least I know black people have been trying to say. Like, really? You want to do something? Two things. Me and Doc have debated this a couple of times. I've even debated on the point, like, okay, so my first idea was black people should have a lobby, right? And then I thought about it, and I still think it should be a thing. But when Doc brought up the point, I had kind of played devil's advocate, and I realized how hard it would be. But if you could have two dream situations, black people should get a lobby or somehow be able to form a lobby, get the funding to form a lobby. And money should be put in black banks. Like, this is what I'm talking about. Not free money to do anything or anything like that, or just be giving people. Black banks will loan to black people at a better rate. So if you empower black banks, right?
Mm-hmm.
You make their spending power big, whatever it is. They still have the same policies, Bank of America rates, whatever it is, but they're loaning to black people. They believe in the communities where the banks are.
Mm-hmm.
You'll see a change.
So let me ask you this, and this is an honest question that I kind of came up when I was on my run today. It's an ethical question. It's like, if you have these two parties, one of them is telling you, hey, we will ban this word so that it never offends you again. And the other one's saying, hey, we will inject $30 million into your community. What do you think is more preferable? And I know there's the whole like, oh, you can't buy me, but it's just like, no, like in this current situation.
In this situation is the platinum bill. Is that essentially what you're talking about?
That's essentially what I was asking, yeah.
Yeah, the platinum bill. And that is not lost on black people at all. I'm trying to tell you that. You may see whatever black people will talk shit about Trump and tweet shit about Trump because he gives us shit to talk shit and tweet about. Like, that's undeniable. He gives us shit to dislike about him.
We have a personality.
But every nigga I know about what the platinum bill. Every nigga I know say, yeah, but we gonna see about that platinum bill. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, so it's not lost on black people that this nigga just talking. Biden is just talking. But all Trump has to do is not rile them up right before the vote.
See that, and then honestly, that's my promise. I don't know if he'll be able to do that.
You don't want people voting emotionally.
And America is very susceptible to voting emotionally.
Well, shit.
Hey, thanks for watching a clip of Fake Deep Thinking. If you like what you heard, be sure to subscribe, like the clip, leave a comment, and check out our page for more content. Full episodes of Fake Deep Thinking are released every Friday on Podbean, iTunes, and Spotify. Peace.